The number one thing women are usually worried about when it comes to the finances part of getting divorced is, how am I gonna pay for a lawyer? And look, that is a very important question. I am a lawyer, so obviously I have thoughts on that. But before we ever even get to that point, what I want you to do when you're putting together your go plan, your all but done plan, is to think about the other aspects of your life that you've gotta have the money for. Because yeah, paying for the lawyer, but are you worried about paying for the lawyer if you can't pay your rent? If you can't put gas in your car? If you can't make sure the daycare is paid? So I want you to a little bit shift your focus. You got to figure out the lawyer part, and that's its whole own thing. All right, I'm not trying to act like that's not a big deal. It is a big deal. We can figure out how to do that. But I'm a practical person first. And before I'm worried about paying a lawyer, I'm making sure I can go to the HEB or the Kroger and get the Cheerios for the kids, right? And especially if you're in a marriage where he's been largely in charge of finances. Maybe you've even stayed home, or you just sort of left that whole thing to him. You may not have any logins. You may only be a card holder on all of the credit cards. And what that means is he can just turn off your credit cards, and you could go to the gas pump and literally have no way to pay the money. So first, what you would do is research and kind of think about, how am I set up in my own life to cover the finances? Can he just cut me off? Do I have access to any bit of money? Okay, so first of all, figure that out. And depending on how that goes, you may have to take different steps. But let's just say, okay, I am just a card holder on some, but I've got access to one of these accounts, right? So then pretend one of those accounts where you're both on it, is that the account that gets spent down every single month? Like some men will just put a certain amount of money only out of their checks to cover the bills and nothing extra. And then you're left without anything. So if you're getting divorced and he's like, oh yeah, you think you're gonna walk away? We'll see. And then he cuts you off, how are you gonna pay for gas? And that's a tough question for a lot of people to think through. And it's the thing that keeps so many women stuck in terrible marriages and stuck in situations that no longer serve them or their children. But not for you, okay? Because I believe in this. You may sit there and say, Hannah, that's easy for you to say, some lawyer in Texas, blah, blah, blah. I wasn't always a lawyer in Texas, okay? And when I was getting divorced, I was in law school, but I'm from East Texas. My parents didn't go to college. We've had to figure it out. And so for you, look, we're women. We figure stuff out. Everything is figure outable. So just get really clear on the other aspect of finances and how are you going to make ends meet if the worst thing happens. And I'm not trying to say all guys are the worst and everyone's going to be terrible, but what if he does? We're not going to hope it doesn't go that way and risk our entire ability to live our life on a hope that he turns out okay. So just thinking it through and getting clear on the plan will set you up to hey, maybe I need to wait a few more weeks until I can get a loan from my parents, or my bonus comes in at work, or do I need to figure out how to get a loan from my 401k? Do I need to sell some of my purses on Facebook Marketplace to fund this whole thing, right? You can make a plan if you know what's in front of you, but if you're only focused on how do I get the money for a lawyer, you may miss the most important financial questions that you need to take care of before you ever file the papers. When you're crafting your all but done plan, this is not the time to be super worried about everything you want in the long term, right? The long-term vision, where you're trying to get to and what you want to take out of the divorce, even at the end of this, you're going to do that when you start with the end in mind and reverse engineer your plan. But the all but done go plan is, what are you going to do right now when you file for divorce? How are you going to stay on 2 feet? And it's I think that a lot of people may not fully appreciate how important this is unless you've gotten divorced already. Because then it's like you throw a grenade into your life, especially if he's not expecting it, and everything kind of blows up around you. So what I'm trying to help you see is you need to get really clear on what you're going to do immediately Some of these other questions, yeah, you need to think long term, like how am I going to afford to pay for a lawyer? But by that point, probably you have a lawyer or something to help you consider how to fund this long term. What you need to be thinking about in terms of like spousal maintenance, alimony, child support. You're going to have some help, hopefully. You need to figure out how to get some help to figure those questions out. But this phase, this step is about what do I do right now to make sure I can still stand on 2 feet till the other help gets on the way, right? So those people can help you prepare for like the war, not that it has to be a war, but like the long term. And I'm helping you for this initial skirmish, this initial battle. What are we going to do right then? And we'll worry about later in another phase. Who can help you craft your all but done plan? Now, the first and most important characteristic of anybody who can help you make your like go plan is someone with complete trust and confidence. Because what you don't want them to do is go and tell the person that you're trying to divorce that you want to get divorced before you're ready. I had a situation in my divorce where I put a lot of faith and confidence in a mutual friend of mine and my ex-husband's. I'm telling y'all, I would have thought she's the person I call if I'm like in jail and not that I'd ever be in jail, but pretend, you do that in your head. So like, okay, who I would call if I was really in trouble and needed help. She was playing me. She was actually aligned with him and using me to get information that she then funneled over to him. I've probably never felt more betrayed in my entire life than I did in that situation. That's not going to happen to you. So you got to think carefully, like maybe your mama, your sister, your best friend of 20 years who hates his guts anyway or something. They can help you think about this. I'm going to tell you to be pretty careful before you consider going to like a financial planner or somebody like that, because more than likely, if you have some sort of a wealth manager, financial person, they also have a relationship with your spouse. Like usually people do that together. And you may put them in a sticky wicket, as I call it. They may be stuck of like feeling like they have to say something, like what do they do? And you're really not at this phase making like big long-term financial decisions. You're literally just trying to figure out, once I file for divorce, what happens in like the first week or so? What am I going to do? Where will the kids be when I tell them I'm leaving? Because plot runner, like some guys may not react that well to know that you're leaving him. I mean, he's losing you. He's like messed it up so bad. You're willing to burn down your life to go. Okay? That's not going to feel good, right? Maybe we can access even some compassion. Like that's not going to feel good to him to know he's lost you. So you need to be ready and prepared. But anyway, you're not going to go get the input of everybody you ever knew because you may be exposing yourself to him figuring it out before you're ready. And then the point of the all but done plan is right out the window.